Maker's Block. It's a thing and not many people talk about it. What's up? I'm Jonathan and welcome to Maker Tales, where I'm sharing my maker's journey to help you go further in yours. So don't forget to subscribe and hit that little bell icon to never miss an opportunity to keep making. This video is all about Maker's Block. I want to be very candid about it in this video as I'm still getting over it myself. And I just want to talk through it because I find that there's not many videos of Maker's Block on YouTube, and I think it's something that should be talked about more. Just like artists get art block and writers get writer's block, makers get Maker's Block. And I've sort of filled this down to a point that, for me anyway, it's got a lot to do with maker's scope. So scope, if you don't know, it's just like the size of the project, how much you're bringing into one project, the amount of work to do. In many designs, you get something called feature creep, which is all of a sudden the design you said, oh, I'm going to make a bench, and this bench is going to have a cup holder, and then this cup holder will be retractable or even removable, and then and eventually this project just turns so big that it's just, you don't know how you'll ever finish it. Well, I find that maker's scope can sort of work in the same way as well. So for me personally, a perfect example is this twist puzzle box. I made it, I already made it, and I wanted to make a great tutorial for it. So I went about and wanted to teach gears. Now, long and the short, I had no idea about gears, so it was completely out of my maker's scope. And then when I looked into it, I realized, oh my goodness, gears are a beast to understand. So I kept throwing it off to the back, off to the background. And eventually I got to the point that I did what Adam Savage has said to do, is basically shelf the project. So I haven't gone ahead and carried on making this video because I really wanted to understand gears properly before making my project really as I wanted it. Because what I did here, I just created a little almost cross thing, not an actual gear, so it jams every now and then, and I don't want to show other makers sort of semi-bad maker practice. So I went about and I taught myself gears, the very basics, because it's an absolute mammoth task. And now I feel like I can come back to it. Now, the great thing about Maker's Scope and Maker's Block is sometimes when a project becomes so big, or there's parts of a project that you have no idea about, i.e. there's a big project that I'll be talking about in a lot more detail called the Infinity Box. I need to know how to code, I need to know Arduino, I need to know electronics. I have no idea of any of that. So I've actually started already. I've gone and got myself Arduinos, and I now know how to turn on an LED. So I'm learning Arduino to then learn code, because I got to one point and then all of a sudden I overscoped within my Arduino project because I have no idea how to code. So then I've gone to learn how to code. Now, coding is a whole video in itself, but long and the short, I realized that if I wanted to learn how to code, I need to make coding fun to learn for myself. So I've actually gone all the way back and I'm learning Unity and C# coding to then learn how code works, to then apply that in Arduino. So if you're experiencing Maker's Block, and it's either usually out of two things, it's something that is out of your maker's scope, or the project is too big. If it is out of your maker's scope, I'm not saying see if you can work away from learning something new, but I'm saying if it's a hobby, how would you you really want to have this project finish, how would you deliver that project if you were on the clock? Again, this is a thing from Adam Savage. And Adam Savage also says that if it is a hobby and you can, maybe the best thing, once you've taken some time to just think it through, is just get the project, put some notes with it, put it on a shelf, leave it there, let it mull over, taunt you in the corner, sort of being like, hey, I'm still here. So not out of sight, just make sure it's still there. And maybe all of a sudden you'll get some inspiration on how to achieve what you're wanting to achieve that might be out of scope. Now, if the project is too big, this comes a lot with business setup, is cut it into pieces. So let's say you're doing a giant cosplay project. Well, you've got the helmet, the shoulders, the chest, all of that. Break it all the way down. So let's say you just needed to sort out some sort of headpiece, but the headpiece itself has like 30 other things on it. Well, break it down to just, I don't know, the smallest little detail. Start small, because lots of small things eventually turn into something big. So that there is what I've got to talk about Maker's Block. I've just got over my Maker's Block about this gear. I just decided that I've just got to learn it. And it took me a good 3 days to understand the very basics of gears, but I'm hoping that I'll be making a video soon to teach not even the basics, the pre-basics of gears, so you can work with gears in your project. Lastly, as I can see that I'm rambling on a bit, I just want to finish this by saying that Maker's Block sometimes is a thing of inspiration. Now, when it comes to inspiration and you don't know what to make next, I would suggest, yes, there's the YouTube videos, there's Pinterest and all that, but mainly when it comes to makers, you probably won't be too short on ideas. It might be more of a just getting something to do. And that's something I do find myself sometimes. For the best part, what I find that helps for me is just making something. Even if it's something simple, even if it's something small, make one thing, and if I'm still not inspired by the end of that, make another small thing. If I'm still not inspired by that, experiment going some completely crazy way of doing something, and don't be scared of failing. If you make something and it just literally falls apart, well, you've learned that doesn't work best. How about throw this other aspect into it, try it out, and you might stumble upon something you really want to then further on develop. Thanks for watching. A huge thank you to my patrons right there. I feel great support by them and have great little conversations with everyone there. And yeah, keep making and let the quest continue.